In this video, we're going to look at the benefits of specialization for two different nations. Okay, so to start off with, I'm going to read a little snippet that says that Israel and Egypt have had a peace accord since the late 1970s. Israel is a country with a very literate population relative to Egypt and is also at the leading edge of farm technology. Still, trade is not great between the two nations, largely for political reasons. Would the countries increase their standard of living if they chose to trade? Follow David Ricardo's theory of comparative advantage, and the answer is usually yes. You must explain why, in doing so, review some basic concepts like the PPF and opportunity cost. Assume these two goods are the only two countries in the world. Suppose Israel and Egypt have the following maximum production possibility frontier for oranges or cotton per acre of land. In addition, assume that the resources, land, labor, capital, are all equally efficient in the production of either good, meaning that we have linearity with respect to the production possibility frontiers, not concavity. All right, so if we were to look at Israel, we see that they can produce 200 kilos of oranges per acre, or 50 bales of cotton per acre. Egypt, on the other hand, can produce 50 kilos of oranges per acre, or 25 bales of cotton per acre. Okay, so now we're going to go through these questions that are already listed and see if we can figure out the production possibility frontier for each nation and the opportunity cost. So we're going to start off by question number 1. Find the absolute and comparative advantage for both goods for each nation. Okay, so we know how to do that already. We're going to set up our paper in terms of rows and columns again. Okay, so rows and columns. And let's go ahead and put Egypt down here on the bottom, and we will put Israel up here on the top. Okay, so the information that we are given is that per acre, Israel can produce 200 units of oranges, or they can produce 50 bales of cotton. Okay, and on the other hand, Egypt can produce 50 kilos of oranges per acre, or they can produce 25 bales of cotton. Okay, so now let's go ahead and figure out what the opportunity cost of oranges and the opportunity cost for cotton are. So basically, one orange is going to equal how many units of cotton? Well, to start off with, we're going to put oranges on the bottom, so 200 units of oranges, or 50 units of cotton. So obviously, 1 unit of orange is going to equal 1/4 unit of cotton. Okay, so here we know that it's going to be the reciprocal. For Israel, 1 unit of cotton is going to be worth 4 units of oranges, but for completion, we'll say 200 units of oranges divided by 50 units of cotton is equal to 4 oranges. Okay, so now let's do the same thing for Egypt. For Egypt, we find out that 1 unit of oranges is equal to, putting oranges on the bottom, 50 oranges, or 25 units of cotton. So that means that their opportunity cost, instead of 1/4, we're going to see is a half. Okay, so the reciprocal of that obviously means for every 1 unit of cotton, they're going to give up 2 oranges. Okay, so we're going to have 50 cotton divided by 25 oranges is equal to 2 oranges for every unit of cotton. Okay, so let's go ahead and find our comparative advantages and our absolute advantage. So we like to do comparative or absolute advantage just in terms of the absolute sign in real terms per acre. 200 is obviously bigger than 50 for Israel. Now for the production of cotton, 50 units of cotton to 25 units of cotton, that means that Israel has the absolute advantage in both the production of oranges and cotton. That does not necessarily mean that they have the comparative advantage. They could have the comparative advantage in each good, but we're not sure. So comparative advantage is the lowest opportunity cost. 1/4 of a unit of cotton is smaller than 1/2 a unit of cotton. So right here we see that this is the comparative advantage for oranges. Okay? And Egypt has the comparative advantage in the production of cotton because for every unit of cotton, they're giving up 2 oranges instead of 4 oranges. So Egypt has the comparative advantage in cotton. Okay, so now let's go on to the second problem. Assume that Egypt has 1,000,000 acres and Israel has 500,000 acres. Now show the production possibility frontier with no trade. Okay, so if we were to look at the individual production possibility frontier for the two nations, we could say, well, let's go ahead and put oranges on this side, and we will have cotton on the y-axis, and oranges, we can put oranges on the x-axis. Okay, so this up here is, or I'm sorry, oranges are going to be on the y-axis and cotton is going to be on the x-axis. All right, so we've created our production possibility frontier with no trade. The third question says, assume each nation spends half of her resources producing both goods. Which single points will they be at on their production possibility frontiers? Well, if they're going to spend half of their nation's resources, so remember, with 1,000,000 or 500,000 acres and 200 kilos per acre, they're going to be able to produce 1,000,000 units of oranges. So half of that would be down here at 50. And instead of being able to produce 25 units of cotton, half of that would be at 12.5. Okay, so both nations will be at 12.5 on their cotton scales, and Egypt will be at 50 units for their oranges. I'm sorry, Israel will be at 50 units for their oranges, and Egypt will be at 25 units. So let's go ahead and add in those dots. Those are where they are currently producing if they are spending half of their resources towards the production of each good. Okay. Now, what is the total production of each good? Okay, well, the total production of each good without any trade is going to be, let's put it down here, I think I have the right color. All right, so total production. All right, so we want to have oranges and cotton. Okay, well, we see that Israel, for oranges, they're going to produce, so we'll say Israel is going to produce 50 million 50 million kilos of oranges, and they are going to produce 12.5 bales of cotton. Okay, and if we turn around and look at Egypt is going to be producing 25 million units of oranges, and they're going to also be producing 12.5 bales of cotton. So if we add those up and we look at what the total production is, we're going to have 75 million kilos of oranges, and we're going to have 25 million bales of cotton. Okay, so we've answered that next one. Now, using Ricardo's theory of comparative advantage, who should produce what and what will the total production be? Well, if we have specialization, so we'll do this again with specialization, let's go ahead and see what's happening with oranges and cotton. Okay, so instead of splitting their resources, Israel is going to produce only oranges. The maximum amount of oranges they can produce, given their 500,000 acres, is going to be 100 million units of oranges, and they're not going to produce any cotton. Okay. Now, Egypt, on the other hand, if they were to specialize, they would not produce any oranges. However, instead of 12.5 units of cotton, they would produce as much cotton as they can, which is 25 million units of cotton. So now if we add up how much the production for oranges and cotton are going to be, we'll see that we'll have 1 million kilos of oranges and 25 million bales of cotton. So that means if we compare to before, our total production has gone up. We're able to increase with specialization and increase 25 million kilos of oranges. Okay, so this is what would be added. This is what would be added to our overall production. Okay, so now the last question is, in terms of trade, 3 kilos of oranges are equal to 1 bale of cotton. Okay, so that means that if we look at the terms of trade, 1 unit of cotton is equal to 3 kilos of oranges. Okay, so that means that 1 orange is equal to 1/3 units of cotton. Okay, so will the nations trade 33 kilos of oranges and 11 bales of cotton? Well, let's see. Israel would need to give up 33 oranges if they're going to trade with Egypt, who would give up 11 units of cotton. So now the way that we can look at this is we can compare what the opportunity cost for Israel's oranges is up here with what the opportunity cost is through the trade. So for Israel, without trade, if they produce both goods, for every 1 orange that they produce, they're having to give up 1/4 of a unit of cotton. Okay, so that means that if they sell an orange to Egypt, they will get for every 1 orange that they sell, they'll get 1/3 of a unit of cotton back. Okay, 1/3 of a unit of cotton is better for them than 1/4 of a unit of cotton that they would get by giving up their own orange. So that is definitely beneficial for Israel. Now, if we look at Egypt, for them to give up 1 unit of cotton, it's going to cost them 2 oranges. For every 1 unit of cotton they give up, it's going to cost them 2 oranges. So that means that their 11 units of cotton are actually worth 22 units of oranges to them. However, for 11 units of cotton, they would be getting back 33 units of oranges, so it is definitely beneficial for them as well. So as long as it's beneficial for both nations, we expect these nations to enter a trade agreement, barring any political problems. So in this situation, we can say, yes, these nations would both be made better off through specialization and trade.